Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. So I'm outraged, I am disappointed, shocked, in genuine disbelief. We paid him all that money, and instead of being at voluntary OTAs, Myles Garrett is instead gallivanting around Japan. I can't. I'm sorry. I don't care. Maybe I should, but I really don't care. Like, I get it. Of course, you'd prefer, your team's best player to attend every organised team practice. But it's fucking voluntary minicamp, man. They're running through installs and working on technique and timing and, all of that kind of stuff out there. Myles Garrett is the best in the world at what he does. He ain't got to be out there doing all of that. You know who does? Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, hell, even Joe Flacco. Those guys are in a quarterback battle and need to take every chance they get. They can actually benefit from these reps. They can get familiar, with their receivers and actually work on things like timing and how guys like their balls thrown. Pause. As I said, there's just no benefit to Myles being out there, really. Now, in terms of, off the field stuff, in terms of leadership and, leading by example, etc. Again, I get it. Everyone has, their own versions of what leadership looks like to them. So, of course, some people don't think this is a good look. But again, for me, I don't really care. I'm not sure how many times it needs to be stressed, but it's voluntary minicamp. The rest of the players on the roster aren't looking at Myles like, damn, bro, you really sold us by not being out there. Does him being there give a clearer representation of his leadership? Probably, I suppose, but we have no idea why he's not there and whether it was planned, signed off with the team. All we know is that he's in Japan. This could be a business venture, a sponsorship commitment, or just a nice trip to Japan to bring back some managers for the boys. We don't know, but I'll say it one last time. I don't care what the reason is. He's not at voluntary minicamp, just like the hundreds, if not thousands, of star players since the NFL has existed that have missed voluntary OTAs any given year. I honestly don't really know what else to say. He was there last year and the Browns went 3-14. I don't really understand what the argument is in regards to it having an effect on the team's ability to win games. It doesn't. Shit. People were arguing on Twitter, which I know of all places to see arguments. They're gonna be the worst of arguments. But even still, arguing about the reason why teams like the Ravens, Eagles, and Chiefs are consistently good is because their players attend voluntary minicamp. I'm sorry, but what were the Ravens doing in the years leading up to drafting Lamar Jackson? Because, call me crazy, but I think the reason they weren't consistently winning then was more because the fact that they didn't have Lamar Jackson, not because they weren't attending voluntary minicamp. Good quarterbacks is how you consistently win games in the NFL. It's not a coincidence that the Browns' miserable run since coming back in '99 has coincided with not having one damn quarterback. The Ravens are consistently good because they have Lamar Jackson. The Chiefs are consistently good because they have Patrick Mahomes. And the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is not on those guys' level. but he's good enough to go along with a literal fucking super team. I'm probably going on a rant now, but like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing? You can say it's a bad look and doesn't show leadership. Like, that's fine. Completely understand that. Whilst I disagree, I'm not going to shout at you for thinking that or anything. I just don't understand how that observation can lead to people then blaming every Browns misfortune on the fact that, Myles Garrett isn't at voluntary minicamp. I really don't. People might think I'm being a Myles apologist here, but I can assure you I'm not. I've not only made, I've made no attempt to hide the fact that he's one of my favourite Browns players of all time, but I've literally made videos, calling him out and criticising him on this channel in the past. This is not just me defending anything that Myles Garrett does. I just think how this has been overblown is just another classic example of, good old Cleveland social media at it again and making something out of, nothing. And I suppose in good faith to those who disagree with me, because they genuinely just, as I said, think it is a bad look for Myles and his leadership. My retort to that would be that there are plenty of other ways to lead other than, showing up for voluntary minicamp. Lead by example, I completely agree. And Myles, does that whenever it's asked upon him. I know the relationship between Myles and the fans, of course, has slightly soured, shall we say, after his public trade request and, essentially public attempt at leaving the team and going on a whole media tour to try and do that. So, that, of course, feeds into this, and I completely understand that. But I do just think it's unfair and, to make such a big deal out of what is just, in my opinion, a massive, massive nothing burger. Plenty of great players attend OTAs every year. Plenty don't. It just is what it is. Whether that's, reasons because they're holding out for a contract, whether that's reasons because, they just don't feel like turning up when they don't have to. As I said, it is what it is. It has no correlation to winning football games, in my opinion. It's just something for, people to write stories about for their websites. It is what it is. It is, of course, good to see a decent turnout overall for the team, obviously. The Browns went from having almost, no vets really attend the voluntary periods of the off-season programs a few years ago, to kind of really shifting their focus to getting as many guys in as early as they could the last couple of years. As I mentioned earlier, it's good to see all four of the quarterbacks out there. It's a true four-man quarterback competition. All four guys, I think, will get the opportunity to win the job. So it's beneficial for both the players and the team, to get as many reps for those guys as possible. We'll, of course, cover the storylines and everything that comes out of OTAs over the next week. But I suppose my initial thoughts on the QBs is that I'm not exactly surprised with how the reps have been given out, on the contrary to some people that seem to be quite surprised with that. I said at the time of the trade and multiple times since that Kenny Pickett will get every chance to win the job, as Flacco will, and could beat out Flacco for the job. So it wasn't a surprise to me to see him be, first up in the quarterback reps order, to start OTAs. It did appear as if him and Flacco got pretty much the same amount of reps overall. But he did, he was technically, shall we say, first in that order. It also doesn't surprise me to see the rookies be third and fourth, on that depth chart, given the fact that, they're a third and fifth round rookies. They will get reps. As I said, I think every guy will get a chance. Those two guys will get a chance to climb the depth chart and win the job, but they will have to earn it. Gabriel was their pick at quarterback. We've spoken about that on here. That's why they drafted him in the third round. So obviously he's going to get the nod initially over Shedeur to start OTAs. But, as I said, both guys will get equal opportunity to climb the depth chart. So it'll be interesting to see, how it goes and how the reps get divvied out as each day progresses and as we progress through, the off-season training program. It's always good to see football being played in Berea, whether it's in pads or not. So I'm happy for the off-season program to be underway and look forward to training camp, etc. All of that stuff going forward. Would it have been good to see Myles at voluntary OTAs? Sure, but to be honest, that's mainly because it would have just meant that we wouldn't have gotten, all the responses that we did on social media. But all jokes aside, let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with me. Is it a bad look for Myles to not be at OTAs, or, is it just, as I said, a nothing burger? But as always, thank you for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have an amazing week. Weekend only a few days away, nearly there, but most importantly, go Browns.